Well, folks, the contempt trial for Steve Bannon starts today with jury selection, and legal experts are already looking at this, saying that this is basically going to be a prolonged guilty plea by Steve Bannon. And the reason they're saying that, of course, is because the judge in the case has already smacked down all of Bannon's lawyers' legal defenses before the trial has even begun. In fact, in a recent motion where the judge smacked down yet another defense, Bannon's lawyers asked, quote, "What's the point of going to trial if there are no defenses?" To which the judge responded, "Agreed." So even the judge is sitting there wondering, why are we doing this? Why are we even having a trial? Because there is no defense for you defying this subpoena from the January 6th committee. In fact, the judge says the only possible defense that you could have is that you misunderstood, deadlines or what they were specifically asking you for. That is literally the only defense you could have for defying the subpoena. That's what the judge has told them. Okay, that is not speculation. The judge says, look, the only possible way you can get out of this is if you convince me that you didn't know what the hell was going on. But what Bannon's lawyers have, of course, tried to argue before the judge, which, again, he's smacked down every time, is that no. Bannon's covered by executive privilege here because Trump exerted executive privilege over the communication, so therefore Bannon doesn't have to turn anything over. And, of course, the judge has said, well, here's the thing, Trump didn't. Not only did he not exert executive privilege over Steve Bannon, there's several problems with that argument, even if he had exerted executive privilege, which, again, he didn't. First of all, Bannon wasn't a member of the administration, so he would not, under any circumstances, actually be covered under executive privilege. That wouldn't apply to him, even if Trump had put executive privilege out there on the table. Secondly, Trump's the former president. He no longer has authority to issue executive privilege over anything. That authority rests with Biden and Biden alone. And Biden, of course, has said, hey, we're not exerting executive privilege over anything. You can get what you get. Go for it. We don't care. So even if Trump had, it wouldn't even stand because Biden has already technically undone it, and it wouldn't have covered Bannon in the first place because he wasn't a part of the actual administration at the time. So, yeah. That, of course, is why the judge has already come forward and said, you're not going to come into my court and argue this. Right? This isn't a thing that's going to happen. We're not going to sit here and listen to all of this nonsense. Bannon recently pledged this on his podcast. He said, pray for our enemies because we're going medieval on these people. We're going to savage our enemies. Who needs prayers? Certainly not Stephen K. Bannon. It kind of seems like you need a prayer because you have no legal defense. Because you're not going to be able to walk into that court and tell them like, oh, I'm a moron. I didn't understand the timelines and the deadlines and, the requests and all of that. The jury's not going to buy that. So what's going to happen to Steve Bannon if he is eventually found guilty? Well, there's technically two options here. One, he works out a plea deal, which of course is what the judge is kind of steering it towards. That's why the judge is already smacking down these legal arguments before the trial actually starts. He's trying to get them, look, accept that you're going to lose. Let's work out a plea deal so Bannon can turn his stuff over. We don't have to go through this trial. We don't have to put on this show. We all know he did it. We all know he was competent enough to know he was doing it. Let's just do this and everybody moves on with their lives. So that's option number one, is they work out a plea deal. Bannon does not get convicted by a jury, doesn't go to jail, doesn't do anything of that. He turns his stuff over, everybody moves on. Second option is that, of course, he is found guilty. Of course, there's a small possibility he's found not guilty, but, that's so unlikely, I'm not even going to touch that. And, of course, if he's found not guilty, he's not guilty, whatever. So if he is found guilty, what does that mean for his documents with the select committee? It means they're not going to get them. Because if he is found guilty and he is sentenced, then he will have served the punishment for the crime of contempt of not complying with the subpoena. And legal experts are kind of in agreement that if that happens, he then wouldn't have to turn over the documents because he was convicted of not turning over the documents. He served his time. He's free to go. So what kind of criminal penalty could these 2 misdemeanor charges that he's facing come with? They could, 30 days up to 1 year in prison per charge. So he may serve 2 months in prison. He may serve 2 years in prison. He could serve literally any time in between that if he is convicted, and that is the punishment they want to go with. Throwing Steve Bannon in prison for this, while I would love to see it, I don't know that that's something that this judge would be willing to do. I mean, if you do it at that point, it kind of seems like this is going to, basically just serve a message. You're not actually punishing him for the crime. You're trying to send a message to other potential people out there. It's within their legal rights to do that. I just don't think they will. But a couple other defendants in the past, I think like 20 years or so, I think there's only been 3 that have also gone to trial for what Steve Bannon is going to trial for. And all 3 of those ended up with a plea agreement before the trial concluded. So that may be the most likely option, especially if the judge says, listen, if you're convicted, I'm giving you the 2 years. So you're either going to spend 2 years in prison, or you can just turn over your documents and we can all call it a day and go home early. Pretty much what happened with the other 3 people that have gone through this in recent years. So that right now would be the most likely outcome. But hey, Steve Bannon says he's a fighter, says he's going to go medieval on him. And he may be the one who gets savaged instead of the one doing the savaging to his enemies. Hey everyone, this is Aspen. And did you know that for the low cost of $0 per day, you can subscribe to the Fair and Balanced YouTube channel. We also encourage you to like, comment, and share. But again, click that subscribe button and help Aspen not be so grumpy.